The Whitmore family's Christmas Eve tradition had always been sacred. Patricia reminded everyone at least 3 times before Maya even stepped through the mahogany front doors. The Georgian mansion gleamed with professional holiday decorations, each garland perfectly placed, every ornament coordinated in gold and burgundy. Maya smoothed her red dress, the one David had said looked beautiful on her, and forced her shoulders back as they entered the warmth of his childhood home. Maya, darling, Patricia's voice carried that particular tone, honeyed on the surface, ice cold underneath. How lovely. I hope you remembered to bring something appropriate for the gift exchange. Her eyes swept over Maya's modest wrapped packages with barely concealed disdain. Maya had spent weeks selecting gifts for David's family. A silk scarf for Patricia from the boutique downtown. A first edition book for David's father, Thomas. Thoughtful presents for David's sister Emma and her children. She'd used her Christmas bonus from the pediatric ward, money she'd planned to send to her own parents. The living room buzzed with conversation as relatives filled wingback chairs and settled onto Persian rugs. Maya recognized most faces from previous gatherings, David's aunts and uncles, his cousins, even Mrs. Henderson from next door who'd been invited for decades. In the corner she spotted Jessica, David's ex-girlfriend's 13-year-old daughter from her new marriage. The girl visited occasionally during holidays, a reminder of David's past that somehow warranted more family inclusion than his actual wife. All right, everyone. Patricia clapped her manicured hands. Time for presents. Maya perched on the edge of the velvet sofa, David's hand finding hers briefly before he moved to help distribute gifts. She watched the familiar choreography, Patricia orchestrating from her throne-like armchair, calling out names with theatrical flourish. Jessica, sweetheart, this one's for you. A beautifully wrapped box sailed across the room. Inside, a designer handbag that cost more than Maya made in a week. The teenager squealed with delight. And Tommy, David's nephew, tore into his package, revealing the latest gaming console. Maya's smile began to ache. She kept it fixed in place as gift after gift found its recipient. David's cousin Sarah unwrapped cashmere. Uncle Robert received expensive whiskey. Even Duchess, the family's golden retriever, pranced around with a new leather collar studded with what looked suspiciously like real pearls. Some people, Patricia's voice cut through the wrapping paper chaos, her gaze landing deliberately on Maya, simply don't understand that family traditions require a certain understanding of propriety. The comment landed like a stone in still water. Conversations faltered. David shifted uncomfortably beside Maya, his jaw tightening. Mom, he said weakly, I'm sure it's just maybe we missed. Oh, did we miss something? Patricia's eyebrows arched with mock surprise. How careless of us. But her smile said otherwise. This was no oversight. Maya's stomach clenched as the reality settled over her like a lid blanket. Every person in this room, including Jessica, who wasn't even blood family, had received a gift. Every person except her. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, as relatives suddenly found their shoes fascinating. Emma cleared her throat. Well, I think that's everyone. Actually, Maya's voice surprised her with its steadiness. I think there might be one more. She gestured vaguely toward the tree, hope and humiliation warring in her chest. Patricia's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. Oh my dear, I'm quite certain we've covered everyone everyone who was on our list. The words hit like a physical blow. Maya felt heat flood her cheeks, her carefully constructed composure cracking. David's hand found her shoulder, but his touch felt hollow, apologetic rather than protective. It's fine, Maya whispered, though it wasn't fine at all. Nothing about this calculated cruelty was fine. She sat surrounded by people who had just witnessed her public humiliation, her exclusion broadcast in gift wrap and ribbon. As conversations awkwardly resumed and children played with their new toys, Maya stared at her empty hands and felt something cold and sharp take root in her chest. This wasn't about gifts. This was about belonging. About acceptance. About a message delivered with surgical precision. You don't belong here. You never will. Patricia caught her eye across the room and smiled. The satisfied smile of someone who had just won a battle. Maya hadn't even realized she was fighting. Maya escaped to the powder room, needing a moment to collect herself before facing the drive home. The humiliation still burned in her chest, but she was determined not to let Patricia see her cry. She splashed cool water on her wrists and took deep breaths, practicing the smile she'd need to wear for the rest of the evening. The bathroom door was thick, but voices carried from the kitchen where Patricia and Emma had retreated to prepare coffee and dessert. Maya froze as she heard her name. Did you see her face? Emma's laughter was sharp, delighted. I thought she might actually cry right there on the sofa. Oh please. Patricia's voice dripped satisfaction. The little nurse who thinks she belongs needed to understand her place. 3 years of this charade is quite enough. The way she kept looking around, expecting something, Emma dissolved into giggles. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. David played his part perfectly, didn't he? All that stammering about forgetting, as if we'd forget anyone who actually mattered. Maya's hand gripped the marble countertop. The casual cruelty in their voices, the pleasure they took in her humiliation, hit her like ice water. But it was Patricia's next words that shattered something fundamental inside her. I do hope this finally opens David's eyes. Perhaps now he'll see what we've been trying to tell him. She simply doesn't fit. Maya slipped out of the bathroom, her mind reeling. In the living room, David sat scrolling through his phone, looking uncomfortable, but not distraught. Not angry on her behalf. Not protective of his wife's dignity. Ready to go, she whispered. He nodded too quickly, relief evident. Let me just grab our coats. At home, Maya couldn't shake the echo of their laughter. While David showered, she found herself staring at his phone on the nightstand. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. She'd never violated his privacy before, but something compelled her to look. The family group chat was easy to find. Whitmore Christmas planning. Her heart stopped as she scrolled through weeks of messages. There it was, in digital black and white, their conspiracy laid bare. Patricia, I think it's time Maya understood where she stands. No gift this year. Emma, finally. I was wondering when you'd stop pretending to like her. David, Mom. That seems harsh, Patricia. David, darling, trust me. Sometimes people need clear messages. David, I guess you know best. Just don't make it too obvious, Emma. Oh, it'll be obvious. That's the point. David, poor Maya. She'll be so confused. Maya stared at the screen until the words blurred. The laughing emojis. His casual dismissal of her feelings. The way he'd played along, even contributed to their cruel joke while pretending innocence to her face. When David emerged from the shower, she was sitting on their bed, his phone in her hands. Maya, what? Poor Maya. Her voice was deadly quiet. She'll be so confused. David's face went white. I can explain. Can you? She looked up at him, this man she'd loved, trusted, built a life with. Can you explain how my husband, helped plan my public humiliation? How you sat there tonight watching me suffer and pretended it was an accident? It wasn't my idea, but you went along with it. You laughed about it. You called me poor Maya like I was some pathetic joke. The betrayal was complete now, deeper than Patricia's calculated cruelty. This wasn't just about a gift or even about acceptance. This was about the man who'd promised to love and protect her, actively participating in her degradation. Maya set the phone down carefully, her hands surprisingly steady. This isn't about gifts, is it, David? This is about whether I belong in this family. And apparently even you don't think I do. Maya didn't sleep that night. Instead, she lay beside David's sleeping form, her mind racing with cold calculation. The hurt was transforming into something sharper, more focused. If Patricia wanted to play games about who belonged in this family, Maya would show her exactly what kind of player she was dealing with. The next morning, she kissed David goodbye, as if nothing had changed. I'm working a double shift today, she lied smoothly. Don't wait up. Instead, Maya drove to the public library and began her research. David had given her access to their joint accounts and financial documents months ago for household planning. Patricia had insisted that a proper wife should manage domestic finances. Now Maya would put that access to devastating use. The Whitmore Family Foundation, established by David's late grandfather, was Patricia's pet project. She served as president, managing substantial donations to local charities. But as Maya scrolled through bank statements and tax documents, discrepancies began to emerge. Payments to vendors that didn't exist. Consulting fees to companies with no online presence. charity events with inflated expenses but mysteriously low actual donations. Sarah Chen, calling for Maya, she said when her college roommate's accounting firm answered. Sarah had become a forensic accountant, specializing in financial fraud. I need a favor, a big one. Within 3 days, Sarah had confirmed Maya's suspicions. Your mother-in-law is sloppy, Sarah said over coffee, sliding a folder across the table. She's been skimming for years. Conservative estimate. She's stolen at least $200,000 from the foundation. Maya's hands trembled as she opened the folder. Bank statements, forged signatures, dummy corporations, Patricia's crimes laid out in meticulous detail. This is enough to send her to prison, Sarah continued. But Maya? Are you sure you want to? I'm sure. Maya's voice was steady. She wants to destroy me? Let's see how she handles being destroyed herself. The second part of her plan required reaching into the family's past. Maya had heard whispers about Uncle Robert, David's father's brother, who'd been excommunicated from the family years ago. David always claimed it was over a business disagreement, but Patricia's reaction whenever Robert's name came up suggested something deeper. Finding Robert proved easier than expected. He ran a successful construction company 2 towns over, lived quietly with his wife of 30 years. When Maya called, explaining who she was, the silence stretched so long she thought he'd hung up. Maya Chen, he finally said, David's wife. The one Patricia can't stand. You know about that? Robert's laugh was bitter. Honey, Patricia's hatred isn't exactly subtle. What do you want? They met at a diner off the highway, Robert sliding into the booth across from her with curious eyes. He was older than David's father would have been, weathered hands wrapped around a coffee cup, but his gaze was sharp. So he said without preamble, you finally figured out what kind of family you married into. Maya told him about Christmas Eve, about the text messages, about David's betrayal. Robert listened without interruption, his expression growing darker. That sounds like Patricia, he said finally. She destroyed my relationship with my brother the same way. Lies, manipulation, turning family against each other. She couldn't stand that James, David's father, trusted me with business decisions. What really happened between you two? I found out she was cheating on James. Robert's voice was quiet, dangerous. Not just once, multiple affairs over the years. When I confronted her, told her she needed to come clean, or I would, she went nuclear. Convinced James I was trying to steal from the family business, that I was jealous of their success. By the time she was done, my own brother wouldn't speak to me. Maya felt pieces clicking into place. And now she controls everything. Everything. The money, the social connections, who's in and who's out. She's been building her little empire for 20 years, and anyone who threatens it gets destroyed. Robert leaned forward. But you're not calling just to chat about family history, are you? Maya slid the financial documents across the table. She's been embezzling from the foundation. I have proof. Robert's eyebrows rose as he scanned the papers. Well, Patricia finally got sloppy. He looked up at Maya with something like admiration. What's your play? I want to expose her, publicly. At the New Year's Eve party in front of everyone who matters to her. That's a nuclear option, Maya. You sure you're ready for the fallout? Maya thought of Patricia's satisfied smile, of David's laughing emojis, of sitting empty-handed while even the dog received gifts. She started this war, Maya said quietly. I'm just going to finish it. Maya chose her outfit carefully for the New Year's Eve party, a stunning black dress that made her look like she belonged in the Whitmore Mansion's opulent dining room. She wanted to look powerful when she destroyed Patricia's world. David had been suspicious all week. Maya's sudden cheerfulness after their confrontation, her willingness to attend another family gathering, her insistence that everything was fine, it all felt wrong to him. But Maya deflected his concerns with kisses and reassurances, playing the role of the dutiful wife rebuilding after their fight. I just want to start the new year fresh, she told him as they walked up the familiar stone steps. Clean slate. The party was in full swing when they arrived. The same crowd as Christmas Eve, plus several of Patricia's society friends and some of David's law colleagues. Crystal champagne flutes caught the light from the massive chandelier, and Patricia held court in the center of it all, resplendent in silver silk. Maya smiled and played her part for the first hour, making small talk and accepting condescending compliments on her dress. She was waiting for the perfect moment, when Patricia would call for everyone's attention for the traditional midnight toast countdown. At 11:30, Patricia clinked her champagne flute with a knife. Everyone, if I could have your attention. The room quieted, all eyes turning to the matriarch. This was the moment Patricia lived for, commanding attention, being the center of her social universe. Before we welcome in the new year, Patricia began, her voice carrying that familiar tone of authority. I wanted to thank you all for being here, for being part of our family. Actually, Patricia, Maya's voice cut through the room like a blade. Before you talk about family, I have something for you. The room turned to Maya, confusion rippling through the crowd. David's face went white beside her. Maya, he whispered urgently, what are you doing? But Maya was already moving toward the entrance hall. The massive front door opened, and Uncle Robert stepped inside, looking distinguished in his dark suit, carrying a leather briefcase. The effect was immediate and electric. Gasps echoed through the room. Patricia's champagne flute slipped from her hand, shattering on the marble floor. Robert, she breathed, the color draining from her face. Hello, Patricia. Robert's voice was calm, steady. It's been too long. Maya moved to stand beside Robert, drawing strength from his presence. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Uncle Robert, David's uncle, who Patricia cut out of this family years ago with lies and manipulation. Maya, David stepped forward, panic in his voice. Stop this right now. No, David. Maya's voice was steel. I'm done being silent. I'm done pretending. I'm done being excluded from this family, while everyone pretends it's normal. She opened her leather folder, pulling out documents. Patricia, you wanted to send me a message about not belonging here. Well, I have a message for you too. Maya held up the financial statements, her voice carrying clearly through the silent room. For the past 5 years, Patricia has been embezzling from the Whitmore Family Foundation. $200,000 stolen from charities. Money meant for children's hospitals, homeless shelters, food banks, stolen to fund Patricia's shopping trips and spa vacations. The silence was deafening. Patricia's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. That's impossible, Emma stammered from across the room. Bank statements, Maya said, holding up papers. Forged signatures, fake invoices, all documented by a forensic accountant. I've already forwarded copies to the district attorney's office. Patricia found her voice, shrill with desperation. She's lying. This is some vindictive plot, because we didn't get her a Christmas present. She's trying to destroy this family, because she's jealous. Jealous? Maya's laugh was sharp. Of what? Your embezzlement. Your racism, your toxic need to control everyone around you. She pulled out another folder. Because I've documented that too. 3 years of racist comments, exclusionary behavior, deliberate humiliation. Every incident recorded, dated, witnessed, including text messages, where my own husband participated in planning my public humiliation. David's face crumpled. Maya, please, choose David. Maya turned to face him, her eyes blazing. Right now, in front of everyone. Are you going to defend the woman who stole from charities and tortured your wife? Or are you finally going to stand up for what's right? The room held its breath. Family members looked between Patricia, still beautiful but now exposed, caught red-handed in financial crimes, and Maya, who stood tall and unbreakable beside the uncle they'd all been told to forget. Patricia made one last desperate attempt. She seduced David for money. She's been planning this from the beginning. Enough. The voice that cut through Patricia's hysteria was Thomas, David's grandfather, stepping forward from where he'd been silently observing. At 85, he still commanded respect, and his voice carried absolute authority. Robert, Thomas said, extending his hand to his estranged son-in-law. Welcome back. Then he turned to Maya, his weathered face kind but determined. My dear, I believe you have more to tell us. Maya nodded, looking around the room at faces she'd tried so hard to please, to belong among. I do, and after tonight, you'll all know exactly who Patricia Whitmore really is. The countdown to midnight had been forgotten. In this moment, Maya held the power, the truth, and the future of the Whitmore family in her hands. Patricia Whitmore had not built her empire by accepting defeat gracefully. Within 48 hours of the New Year's Eve catastrophe, she launched her counteroffensive with the precision of a seasoned general. Maya Chen is a gold digger who seduced my son for access to family money, Patricia declared to anyone who would listen. She called Emma, David's aunts, even family friends, spinning a narrative of manipulation and betrayal. She's been planning this from the moment she met David. The nursing job, the sweet act, all calculated to get close to our family's wealth. The story found fertile ground among some relatives who had never fully accepted Maya anyway. Cousin Sarah, who had always resented Maya's education and independence, became Patricia's most vocal supporter. I always said there was something off about her, Sarah told anyone who would listen. No one goes after their mother-in-law like that unless they have ulterior motives. But Patricia's narrative cracked against the foundation of Robert's return and Thomas's support. Uncle Robert had credibility. He'd been wronged by Patricia years ago, and his presence validated Maya's claims about Patricia's manipulative history. David's grandfather, meanwhile, had lived through enough family drama to recognize truth when he saw it. The family fractured along predictable lines. The older generation, led by Thomas, sided with Maya and Robert. They remembered Patricia's arrival as an outsider herself, her systematic isolation of anyone who questioned her authority. The younger relatives split, some horrified by Patricia's crimes, others viewing Maya as a vindictive outsider who had destroyed family unity. David found himself trapped in the eye of the hurricane. At work, partners at his law firm began asking pointed questions about his family's foundation scandal. At home, Maya watched him with eyes that seemed to catalog every word, every gesture, measuring his loyalty. "You have to choose," Maya told him one evening, her voice calm but final. "You can't keep trying to make peace between me and someone who embezzled money from charities and treated me like dirt for 3 years." But David's attempts at neutrality became impossible when Patricia escalated beyond family politics. She hired Marcus Webb, a private investigator specializing in character assessment cases. Within a week, Webb was interviewing Maya's former colleagues, digging through her college records, even approaching her parents in California, with loaded questions about Maya's relationship patterns and financial motivations. "She's having me investigated," Maya told David, sliding the detective's business card across their kitchen table. "Your mother hired someone to dig through my entire life, looking for dirt." David's face went pale. "Maya, I had no idea. Call her, right now. Tell her to stop." The phone call was brutal. David demanded Patricia call off the investigation, but Patricia's response shattered his remaining illusions about neutrality. "It's her or me, David." Patricia's voice was ice cold through the speaker. "That woman has poisoned this family against me, destroyed my reputation with lies." "They weren't lies, Mom. I saw the bank statements, fabricated. And if you can't see that, if you choose to believe her over your own mother, then you're not the son I raised. Choose now, divorce her and inherit your rightful place in this family, or lose everything." The ultimatum hung in the air like a blade. Maya watched David's face crumble as he realized his mother was demanding he destroy his marriage to save his inheritance. But Patricia wasn't finished. When David refused to immediately agree to divorce Maya, she played her nuclear card. She contacted the state nursing board, filing a complaint alleging that Maya had improperly accessed patient medical information and used her position to gather private family medical records for personal gain. "It's completely fabricated," Maya told the board investigator, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I've never accessed any family member's medical records through my work. I don't even work at the same hospital system they use." But the investigation put Maya's nursing license, her entire career at risk. Patricia had weaponized the system against her, using Maya's profession as another battlefield in their war. That night, David found Maya sitting in their living room, staring at the nursing board's formal inquiry letter. "She's trying to destroy my career," Maya said quietly. "Everything I worked for, everything I built before I even met you. She wants to take it all away because I had the audacity to expose her crimes." David sank onto the couch beside her, the weight of his family's toxicity finally crushing his last attempts at neutrality. Maya, I'm so sorry. I never thought she would. Yes, you did. Maya's voice was sad but certain. You've always known what she's capable of. You just hoped you'd never have to choose between protecting me and keeping the peace. The room fell silent except for the ticking of their grandfather clock, a wedding gift from Thomas, who had believed in their marriage when Patricia never would. Well, David said finally, his voice stronger than it had been in weeks. I guess it's time to choose. Thomas called the family meeting for Sunday afternoon, his voice on the phone carrying the authority of a man who had built an empire from nothing. We're going to settle this once and for all, he told each family member. 2 o'clock, everyone will be there. The formal dining room had never felt more like a courtroom. Thomas sat at the head of the massive mahogany table, his weathered hands folded, pale blue eyes sharp despite his 85 years. Patricia entered like a queen preparing for battle, her silver hair perfectly styled, her posture rigid with defiance. Maya and David sat together, but the space between them felt vast, his choice still unspoken but hanging heavy in the air. Emma and her husband took seats across from them, while Uncle Robert positioned himself near Thomas, his presence a constant reminder of Patricia's past crimes. Other family members filled the remaining chairs, their faces tense with anticipation. We're here, Thomas began, his voice carrying the weight of decades, because this family is tearing itself apart. Patricia, you've made serious accusations about Maya. Maya, you've exposed serious crimes committed by Patricia. It's time for truth. Patricia straightened, her mask of dignified victimhood sliding into place. Father, I appreciate you calling this meeting. Maya has poisoned this family against me, with fabricated evidence and lies. She's manipulated David, turned Robert against me with, the evidence isn't fabricated. David's voice cut through his mother's speech, quiet but resolute. I've seen the bank statements myself. I know about the foundation money. Patricia's face contorted with fury. David, how dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth. Stop enabling your behavior. David stood slowly, his decision crystallizing in real time. Mom, you embezzled money from charities. You excluded my wife from family events because of her race. You tried to destroy her career with false allegations. I've been making excuses for you for years, but I'm done. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Patricia's carefully constructed facade began to crack, revealing something ugly underneath. Fine, she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You want to know the truth? The real truth? She turned to face Maya directly, her eyes blazing with years of suppressed hatred. You don't belong here, you will never belong here. This family has standards, traditions that go back generations, and I will not watch some little Chinese nurse destroy everything we've built. The silence was deafening. Even Emma's face went white with shock. Patricia, Thomas warned, his voice low and dangerous. But Patricia was beyond caring. Years of controlling her image, of hiding her true feelings behind polite society manners, exploded outward in a torrent of venom. She came here with her calculating smile and her little sob stories about working so hard, thinking she could buy her way into our world with her pathetic attempts to fit in. But we know what she really is. A gold-digging foreigner, who seduced my son for access to our money and our name. Maya felt the words like physical blows, but she sat perfectly still, letting Patricia expose herself completely. She thinks she's so smart, bringing Robert back, turning you all against me. But she'll never be one of us. Never. She can steal our money, manipulate our men, but she'll always be exactly what she is, an outsider who doesn't understand her place. The room erupted in shocked voices, family members speaking over each other in horror and dismay. But Thomas's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Enough. The single word silenced everyone. Thomas rose slowly from his chair, his full height still imposing despite his age. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of a man who had commanded respect for 8 decades. Patricia, he said, each word deliberate and final, you disgust me. Patricia's face went white. Father, I built this family's fortune with my own hands, came to this country with nothing but determination, and the belief that character mattered more than bloodline. I raised my son James to value integrity over prejudice, kindness over cruelty. His pale eyes blazed with fury. You have dishonored everything he stood for. Thomas turned to Maya, his expression softening. My dear, I owe you an apology. I should have stopped this years ago. I should have seen what was happening and intervened. He looked back at Patricia, his voice hardening again. Instead, I watched my daughter-in-law systematically abuse my grandson's wife, while stealing from the charities my son established to help others. You can't, Patricia started, but Thomas raised his hand. I can and I will. As of this moment, Patricia, you are removed from all positions of authority in family businesses and foundations. Your access to family accounts is terminated. The house you live in belongs to the family trust. You have 30 days to find other accommodations. Patricia's composure finally shattered completely. You senile old fool. You can't do this to me. I've given this family everything. You've given this family shame. Thomas's voice was granite. Robert, I'm reinstating your position in the family business and on the foundation board. Maya, I'm appointing you to replace Patricia as foundation president. It's time this family remembered what it means to have honor. He turned to David, his expression both disappointed and hopeful. Your wife has shown more integrity in the past month than your mother has in 20 years. I hope you're wise enough to recognize that. Patricia stood on shaking legs, her world crumbling around her. David, she whispered, making one final, desperate plea to her son. You can't let them do this to me. I'm your mother. David looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the powerful matriarch who had controlled his life, but a bitter, bigoted woman who had spent years destroying everything good around her. No, he said quietly, a mother protects her children's happiness. A mother welcomes the person they love. You've been my enemy's mother for 3 years. I just finally see it. Patricia's last supporters looked away, unable to meet her eyes. The woman who had ruled this family through fear and manipulation stood alone, exposed and powerless. Thomas resumed his seat. The matter settled in his mind. This meeting is adjourned. Patricia, my driver will take you home to pack. 6 months later, Maya stood in the same formal dining room where Patricia had met her downfall, but everything had changed. The mahogany table was covered with foundation documents and charity reports instead of crystal and fine china. As the new foundation president, Maya was rebuilding what Patricia had corrupted, channeling the stolen funds back into the children's hospitals and homeless shelters they were meant to serve. Patricia's legal consequences had been swift and decisive. The district attorney's office, armed with Maya's meticulously documented evidence, filed charges for embezzlement and fraud. Patricia plea bargained to avoid prison time, but she lost everything: her social standing, her control over the family, and her access to the wealth she'd manipulated for decades. She moved to a modest apartment across town, a fallen queen in exile. The family had slowly reorganized itself around new values. Thomas, despite his age, had thrown himself into restructuring the family's business and charitable operations with an energy that surprised everyone. Uncle Robert returned, not just to the family fold, but to a position of real authority, bringing integrity and accountability that had been missing for years. Emma, shocked by witnessing her mother's true nature, had tentatively reached out to Maya. I owe you an apology, she'd said during an awkward coffee meeting. I saw the signs for years but convinced myself they didn't mean what I knew they meant. Their relationship would never be close, but it was honest now, built on acknowledgement rather than pretense. David had transformed as well. The weak man who'd hidden behind his mother's manipulation was gone, replaced by someone who actively defended his wife and their marriage. He'd taken a leave of absence from his law firm to help rebuild the foundation, working alongside Maya in a partnership that felt genuine for the first time. Do you ever regret it? David asked her one evening as they reviewed applications for the foundation's new scholarship program, grants specifically for first-generation college students from immigrant families. Maya considered the question seriously. Some relationships had been irreparably damaged. Cousin Sarah and a few others would never forgive Maya for destroying the family, as they saw it. The social circles that had once reluctantly included her now whispered about her behind manicured hands, calling her vindictive and calculating. Sometimes, Maya admitted, when I see how the family fractured, when I think about how things might have been different if I'd just endured it. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. Enduring Patricia's abuse hadn't been protecting the family, it had been enabling a toxic system that hurt everyone trapped within it. But then I think about this. Maya gestured to the scholarship applications spread before them. real money going to help real people, instead of funding Patricia's shopping trips. A family foundation that actually reflects the values your grandfather intended. The Christmas Eve party that year was different. Maya helped plan it, working with Thomas to create traditions that included rather than excluded. When gift exchange time came, Maya watched as every person received thoughtful presents, including the newest additions to the family, Robert's daughter-in-law and her children, who had been welcomed back after years of forced estrangement. When Thomas stood to make his traditional toast, he raised his glass not to tradition for tradition's sake, but to family members who have the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. His eyes found Maya's across the room, and she saw in them something she'd never received from Patricia: genuine respect. Maya had achieved her revenge, but more importantly, she'd earned her place, not through manipulation, or by diminishing herself to fit into someone else's vision, but by refusing to accept treatment that was fundamentally wrong. The cost had been high. The family would always bear scars from the confrontation, but the alternative had been slow poison. As the evening wound down, and David helped clean up, Maya found herself thinking about the woman she'd been a year ago, desperate to belong, willing to accept crumbs of acceptance. That woman was gone, replaced by someone who knew her worth and wouldn't compromise it for anyone's comfort. The gifts under the tree that year weren't just wrapped packages. They were symbols of a family learning. Finally, that inclusion was stronger than exclusion. That character mattered more than appearances, and that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable someone's worst impulses.